going to start reading book 2 of the Story of the Worlds. It's going to start from the fall of Rome to the rise of the Renaissance. Chapter 1. The Glory That Was Rome. Wandering through the Roman Empire, what if you owned the magic carpet? You could use it to fly around the world and back in time. Let's imagine that you're going to fly back past time that you were born, back to the days when people used horses to get around. And then you're going to fly back to the Middle Ages, back to the days of knights and castles. Then you're going to go back even farther to the times of the Romans. Your magic carpet stops. You're hovering high in the air above the Mediterranean Sea. When your feet on the carpet, you can look down at the Mediterranean Sea. It looks like a bit like a duck flying. You notice all the land around the Mediterranean is glowing yellow. This is the land that belongs to the Roman Empire, the biggest, most powerful empire in the world. For hundreds of years, Roman soldiers have been attacking and conquering the trees around the Mediterranean Sea. Now the emperors of Rome rule all these conquered cities. All the conquered cities. Roman soldiers have been attacking and conquering countries around the Mediterranean Sea. Now the emperor of Rome rules all these conquered cities. They obey the laws of Rome, speak the language of Rome, and serve the emperor of Rome. The Roman Empire divided. Your magic carpet swoops down towards the Mediterranean Sea. The most important city, Italy itself, in the middle of the boot. Your carpet dives into the middle of the city. You're carried along paved streets through crowds of people. They are wearing white robes draped around their shoulders and caught up around the waist with a belt of leather. They wear cloaks of red, blue, and other bright colors. Tall buildings rise up on either side of you. Ancient apartment buildings made out of concrete. To your right, you see an enormous circular wall curving away from you. It looms high over your head. On the other side of the wall, you heard clashing of metal against metal. On the roar of an excited crowd. This must be the Colosseum, the huge amphitheater where gladiators fight to death. Chariot racers careen around the track, and lion battles with Roman soldiers for the entertainment of Roman spectators. As your carpet takes you through the richest part of town, you see marble columns with the great statues of great Roman generals and emperors on top of them. Slaves pass by you, staggering under the weight of litters, bed on which important Roman citizens lie to be carried through the city. You hear the sound of music and a very loud voice crying, "Clear the way for the emperor!" A litter comes into view, draped in purple and surrounded by guards. On the litter lies a fat man wearing gorgeous purple cloaks and golden rings on his fingers, a golden laurel wreath on his head. He is the ruler of all Rome. You decided to get out of his way, and your carpet rises above the city and carries you up north into the countryside. You're going to travel north up through Italy. The carpet follows a broad, smooth paved road crowded by travelers and packed animals. You cross a village built with tall stone arches above a river that runs far beneath. The road goes on and on. The Romans built hundreds of these roads along different parts of their empire together. The Romans built hundreds of these roads to link different parts of their empire together. None of these travelers on the road seemed worried about bandits or highway robbers. After all, the Romans are careful to keep peace all over their kingdom. This Paximono or Roman peace means that all parts of the Roman Empire obey the Roman laws, and the Roman laws are very strict when it comes to highway robbery. Bandits who are caught are executed or forced to fight in gladiator shows. After you've flown hundreds of miles, mountains come into view ahead of you. Your carpet soars up above them. The air becomes very cold. Far below, you can see the snow on the mountaintops. These are the Alps. When you come down on the other side of the Alps, you're in Gaul, one of the Rome's provinces or conquered cities. Though Gaul you see an army camp. Soldiers cook meals, open fires, practice sword fighting, and exercise their horses, waiting for trouble. If the people who live in Gap revolt, the soldiers will immediately go to war against them. Your carpet flies you over a wide stretch of water to a huge island and hovers above the ground. You hope the carpet will land because above you are crowds of fierce warriors, planning to attack the Roman army huddled on stone. Now you're in Britain. The first warriors below you are called Celts. They're painted blue, their hair greased with animal fat so it sticks up and points up all above their heads. And they carry great two-sided axes and razor-sharp spears. The Pax Romana didn't seem to be working well here in Britain. Let's get out of here, you tell the carpet. Instantly, it whisks back up into the air. You fly down to the Atlantic Ocean, down through Spain, to the northern part of Africa. As you fly along the northern Africa coast, you see great trading cities below. Cities built by the Romans with busy ports where ships sail in and out, carrying spices, skills, silk, salt, lumber, and other goods. It's a peaceful sense. The Pax Romana must be back in good action. Up ahead, you see the peak of a pyramid jutting up from the sand of a desert. You sail over the pyramids, half blinded by the sand of the desert. You sail over the pyramids, half blinded by their white eyes shining in the sun. You see a huge river feeding the Mediterranean Sea. It's the Nile River. Even Egypt, the land of pharaohs, pyramids, and mummies, is under Roman control. The sun is starting to sink towards the horizon, but you're only gone halfway through the Roman Empire. Hurry up, you say to the carpet. In moments, you swoop through Arabia, Syria, and up into Asia Minor. And as soon as you fly across Greece, you'll be back in Rome. Thanks to your flying carpet, Roman roads, and the Pax Romana, you traveled around a Roman Empire in less than a day. But in the day's Roman power, it would take months to get all around Rome. No wonder that Rome was called the ruler of Rome, ruler of the whole world. The emperors of Rome were called the ruler of the whole world. But they had a problem. The world was too big to rule. The Roman Empire was so large that it only couldn't protect its border. And there were plenty of people outside the Roman Empire who wanted to come in and take parts away. You imagine that you're standing in an orchard filled with apple trees. Right. Your juicy apples hanging from every branch, and hungry animals are roaming in herds all around the edges. Three starving deer rush in and start to eat the apples on one side. You run at them, waving your arms and shouting. The deer dash off, but while you're chasing them, two enormous cows snatching apples from the other side of the orchard. You turn around and charge them, yelling, "Don't eat my apples!" The cows slowly back away, but now 5 squirrels are in the middle of the orchard, and each squirrel has an apple in its mouth and another in its paws. All alone, you'll never keep these animals out of the orchard. That's how the Roman rulers felt about their empire. Wandering tribes from other parts of the world wanted to come into Rome, conquer Roman villages, use the Roman roads. Use the Roman roads, conquer the Roman villages, use the Roman roads, eat the Roman cross, and share the Roman wealth. The Romans called these wandering tribes barbarians. Barbarians didn't live in houses like the Romans did, or take baths like the Romans did, or they cooked their food. Instead, they lived in tents, fought on horseback, and ate the food raw. The Romans thought that these barbarians were no better than animals. Thousands of these barbarian invaders, called Huns, Vandals, Gauls, Visigoths, and Orcists, swept down on Rome's borders. Emperors sent their armies to protect the borders, but there weren't enough soldiers to guard all the sides of the Roman Empire. And Rome had other problems too. In some places, food was running short, and Roman citizens were getting hungry. A terrible sickness called the plague killed many of Rome's strong fighters, and many of the emperors who inherited the job of ruling Rome weren't as good as running the empire. And one of them went mad and trying to make his horse into a government official. Finally, an emperor named Delosian came to the throne. the empire was too big for one ruler and one army to protect, so he divided the Roman Empire into two parts. The part of the empire with Italy and Rome, it was called the Western Roman Empire. The part with Asia Minor and Egypt was called the Eastern Roman Empire. And the Lucian appointed another emperor, a man named Maximus, to rule with it. He also chose two more men to be called junior emperors. These junior emperors were called Caesars. They were like vice presidents, one that helped the Lucians with the task of ruling, the other helped Maximin. From now on, there will be two Roman emperors, and two Caesars. The Lucians decided to divide the Roman Empire in the year 286 AD or CE 286. Both of these abbreviations mean that the Lucians defeated in the 286 years after the birth of Jesus. AD stands for Anno Domini, which means the year of our Lord. For Christians, every year the birth of Christ was his year. Many people prefer to use abbreviation CE, which means Christian era or common era. When you're reading, you will notice that authors use AD while others use CE. The date comes after the birth of Jesus. The Lucians hoped the Roman Empire would be easier to protect. Now, the four men were working to keep it safe, but he was wrong. 200 years after the Lucians' death, the Western Roman Empire was finally conquered by barbarians, burned Rome, and carried all of its treasures away. Nothing was left but the Roman roads and bridges, and slowly even those began to crumble away into dust. After the Roman Empire fell, all the countries had once belonged to the almost free Roman rule. One of these countries was Britain. Remember the flying over Britain on their magic carpet? The Roman soldiers in Britain were fighting fierce, courageous warriors who were painted blue. These warriors were called Celts. Celts lived on Britain before the Romans invaded the island. They weren't happy to see the Romans arrive, and even though the Romans set up camp in the south of Britain, they never managed to conquer all the Celts. In the Western Roman Empire fell, the Celts drove the last Roman soldiers out of their country. Now Britain was theirs again. The Celts were proud of their fighting and strength. They had praised men who had courage in battle. They sang songs and told stories about great warriors, especially trained singers called the Bar learned stories about chieftains and battle heroes of long ago. The stories weren't written down. Instead, bards learned them from each other and memorized them so that they could be told again and again. These stories told the Celtic children that it was good to be strong and warlike. One story told around the fires of the Celts was Craith and his companions, 3 warriors with special powers. The story might have ended something like this. One day, the warrior Craith said to himself, "I'm a great fighter and have never lost a battle, but I'm lonely. I want to marry a woman with hair and black as a raven's wing, skin as white as snow, and cheeks as red as blood. But the only woman beautiful as that is held prisoner by the great fevers in the mighty blows at the end of the world." Craith set off the giant favor and to rescue the beautiful woman and was. "What are you doing?" Craith said. "Oh," the warrior said, "I'm listening to the grass grow down at the end of the world." "You better come with us," Craith said. "Your hearing might help us in our quest." So the 3 men walked along. Soon they heard a noise behind them. Thump, thump, thump. They turned and saw a warrior coming up fast behind them. They were hoping hopping on one foot, and his knee was bent so that his other leg was tied up behind him. "Why don't you untie your other leg?" he said. "Oh," the hopping guy said, "if I did that, I would run so fast I would soon be at the end of the world, and where would I go?" "Come with us," the said, and they walked towards the end of the world. Soon the castle of the great foe, her mighty blows came into sight. The warrior Kraith and his 3 companions stood beneath the walls and called out, "Giant, giant, favor! Come to rescue the woman with hairs like the living wing, and skin like the snow, and cheek like bronze. Set her free." When the giants heard them calling, he laughed. "Bring me 3 bottles of water from the well at the other end of the world," he shouted at the window. "Then let her go, I swear. Go and get the water," Kraith said to the hopping warrior. The warrior untied his leg and set his foot on the ground. Instantly he was gone. No more than a moment passed, and he was at the well, and the way under in the well, he filled his bottles and started his way back. Happy days. He thought, "I'm going to be there so fast, I'm going to be back before the campfire. I might as well sit down and rest for a moment." He sat down under a tree to rest. The bottle by the side was warm. The sun was warm, the tribunation was off, and soon he fell asleep. Back at the giant's castle, Kraith was growing reckless. "Where is he?" he asked his other companions. The warrior had keen ears, laying down and pressed his ear on the ground. I said him, "Here you with the eyes, throw walk to worry him up." So the warrior with the sharp eye peered halfway around the world and saw his friend dozing by the roadside. He lifted a rock and threw it. The rock flew through the air for hundreds of miles until it hit the sleeping man with a ping, right on the eye. He woke up with a start. "I've been asleep," he exclaimed. "I better go back with this water." He scooped his bottles up and began to run. A moment later, he was at the giant forward's castle. With the water from the well at the world's other end. The giant Fëanor was furious to see that his task had been done, but he had given his word, so he had to free the beautiful woman with hair black as a raven's wing, skin like snow, and cheeks like gold. And Kraith married her, and they lived happily ever after. And always after that, the 3 warriors with the keen eyes, sharp eyes, and quick feet lived with Kraith and went with him into battle in their and together they could not be defeated. The barbarians come to Britain. The Celts who lived in Britain didn't all belong to the same kingdom, and they didn't obey the same king. Britain was full of different types of Celts. And each tribe followed a different king. Old stories tell us that one of these kings named Vortigern. Vortigern ruled a wealthy, powerful tribe of the Celts in the middle of Britain. His people obeyed him, and the warriors for him followed his commands. But the Vortigern still wasn't happy. Other tribes and Celts from north kept attacking his kingdom. Vortigern was tired of fighting them off. He wanted help. Vortigern sent a message across the northeast to the barbarian tribe of Andals and Sa'din. "Come to help me fight my enemies," he said. "If you do, I'll give you land to live on here on Britain." So the Andals and Sa'din came over the North Sea into Britain. They helped Vortigern fight his enemies. They liked Britain, so they settled down and stayed there. They went and sent word back to their friends, "Come live in Britain with us. There's plenty of room here." So more and more Andals and Sa'din sailed to the whole middle part of Britain was filled with Andals and Saxons and all across the North Sea to Britain. The whole middle part of Britain was Andals and Saxons. The Celts did not like these barbarians in their country. But there were so many Angles and Saxons that they couldn't drive them all out. Soon the south and east part of Britain was completely occupied by Angles and Saxons. They divided the land into 7 kingdoms. Today we call this part of Britain England. England, the name comes from Angle. We call the people who live there Anglo-Saxon. Poor cults. First, the Romans attacked them. Now the Anglo-Saxons had driven them out of their own land. Some of the Celts decided to make the best of it. They remarried Anglo-Saxons and lived with them in peace. But other Celts retreated up into the north and west into Britain to live by themselves. Today we call these countries Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. Do you remember what the Celts told stories to each other rather than writing them down? The Angles and Saxons didn't do very much writing either. They didn't. They didn't write down their stories, and they didn't keep record of what they did every day. Although we know that Angles and Saxons lived in England for a long time, we don't know what they did during those years. This time in England is called Middle Ages or the Dark Ages. It is dark time to us because we can't read about what happened in the 7 Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. The only stories we have from these times are stories passed down from one bard to the next by word or of mouth. The Beowulf the hero. Anglo-Saxons told stories about their heroes just as the Celts did. One of these stories was about a monster named Grendel and the great warrior that conquered him, Beowulf. The story of Beowulf is the oldest stories in English. In the English language, it may have been told for years before it was finally written down. The story is written in poetry. Poetry is easier to remember and perform for other people. The whole story of Beowulf is long and complicated. And here's a shorter version of the story for you to listen. Hrothgar the king was king of a whole host of men who fought for King Hrothgar again and again. And their strength and courage are well known to all, so Hrothgar decided to build them a hall. It was hung with tapestries, roofed with all stout, heated by fires enormously great. Each night of the week, his men gathered here to feast and sing, and to put away care. They unrolled their blankets, slept next to the fire while torchlight steamed the hall's highest spire. Now this hall of the pigs is high on solid ground, with safe friendly fields and great houses all around. But far, far away, over cropland and heath, lived a monster named Genold, with sharp claws and teeth. He was a hairy and hideous, as tall as 2 trees. The biggest of men only came to his knees. He crawled up to the hall while the weary men slept. He crawled up to the hall while the weary men slept, eased open the door, and through it crept. He picked up the warriors and raided him right there, and then seized 50 Moors and ran off like a hare. The men tried to follow his tracks on the ground, but soon came a river where none could be found. In the morning, the warriors mourned for their friends, and swore they would bring these attacks to an end. Although in the daytime they wanted to find their courage all tickled away at the night. Again and again, Genold broke the door, Brown stayed at the crowd and ate some more, and the more gathered here. And day after day, the village warriors failed to keep him away. They were tired of fighting and lost all pride as knew of their triumphs and spread out far and wide. There Beowulf, mightiest man in court in earth. Here's a famous fighter of very great worth. Heard that general attacked Hardegor's halls every night, and that Hardegor's strong forehead was too scared to fight. He gathered his clan with sharp sworded spears and set off for the hall where the men nursed their fear. Hardegor was glad to see all those strong men. He thanked them for coming again and again. He said to them, "Welcome, Beowulf and all. Tonight, all of you can sleep in my home. When the monsters arrive with his heart set on sin, he'll find you in there where is all your kin. You can fight him then. Do you need anything? Sharper swords?" But Beowulf said to the king, "Don't worry, we'll stay here with never a care. In matter of fact, it wouldn't be fair to use swords to conquer this beast. He doesn't have any weapons. Just claws and his teeth, so I'll take off my armor and leave off my sword. I'll fight with bare hands, otherwise I'll be bored." Beowulf and his men lay down on the floor, turned out all the lights, and locked the great door. He waited for Grendel, pretending to sleep. Then, out of the darkness, so thick and deep, came out the monster, approaching the hall. He howled and brought fear to the hearts of them all. The door, made of iron, was closed, locked, and barreled, but the monster disordered without breathing hard. He grabbed a plump warrior to get ready to feast. The Beowulf seized the arm of the beast. Seized the arm of the beast and started to twist it with all his might. Then General turned on him, ready to fight, but Beowulf twisted the arm yet again. With Grendel howled out a terrible pain. He screamed and he howled, but he couldn't flee. Beowulf must wear something else to see. Then Beowulf pulled once again on the arm. It popped off at once, causing Grendel great harm. Yelping, he galloped right out of the door, leaving his arm lying there on the floor. The warriors saw what their leader had done. They cheered. They followed where Grendel had sworn. The great monster led down them into a pool where dank mist had settled, all slimy and cool. Over on the black water surface engulfed, they found the body of Grendel, who had jumped in and drowned. "He is dead," they rejoiced. "Let's have a great feast. No more will we dread approach the beast." And mirth and glee, then they brought to the food and hall, and they hung Grendel's arm up on the wall, and they ate, drank, and sang till evening grew old. Then hunger gave Beowulf armor of gold, and Bard landed Beowulf mighty of hand, and his fame eternally sung in that land. Chapter 3. Augustine comes to England. In the last days of the Roman Empire, one religion, Christianity, spread all through the countries controlled by Rome. The Roman Empire himself became a Christian. He told his subjects that they should be Christians. Christianity was popular, and the Roman Empire was destroyed. After the fall of Rome, the Roman Empire was known as the Middle Ages. During the Middle Ages, even though Roman Empire was gone, Christianity survived. Many people were still Christians in all different lands that has once been ruled by Rome. And many of these Christians in the old Roman Empire followed a man called the Pope. The Pope was the leader of a Christian church in Rome. Many people believe that God has given him the job of taking care of Christians all over the world. One day, people were walking through the marketplace near his home when he saw slaves for sale. Men and women were being sold for large amounts of money so that they could work for their masters for the rest of their lives. The Pope shook his head over this evil. He walked over more closely at the slaves. 3 of the slaves, just boys, not much older than you, had very blonde hair, and their skins were as white as paper. The Pope was used only to seeing dark-haired people around him. In those days, fair-haired people were unusual and strange. "Where are these boys from?" he asked one of the 12 slave traders. "From Ireland of Britain," the slave trader answered. "We sailed over there and kidnapped them. All the British look like that." Now, the Pope had never heard about the island of Britain. All people Britain Christians? Yes. All the people were Christians, yes. No, the slave trader said. They never heard of Christianity. The Pope went down to talk to the blonde boy. "What are your people called?" he asked. "You're called Angles," said the oldest boy said. "We want to go back home." Angles? You look like angels, the priest exclaimed, and he bought the boys so that they would not have to be slaves. He took them back to their homes, fed them, sent them to school, taught them about Christianity. Then he sent for another Christian named Augustine and told him about Britain and the handsome Angles who lived there. Augustine, he said, I want you to go to Britain. Take these boys back to their homes so that they can tell their families about Christianity. And I want you to stay in Britain and teach these people about our faith. Build churches in Britain. I'll make you Archbishop of England, and you can take care of all the Christians in that country. Augustine agreed to go to Britain. He took 40 men with him, and they started on their journey to the island. They reached the coast of England in the year 597. They were greeted by the most powerful king in Britain, Alumbert, who ruled most part whole southern part of the country. Alumbert had heard that strangers were coming to do magic in his kingdom. He met Augustine and his companions on the shore. What strange powers do you have? I won't let you into my palace until I can be sure that you won't try to play a spell on me. We aren't here to play spells on you. We are here to tell you about Christianity. And then he told his companions and told about the Christian faith. Albert said, this sounds interesting, but it's all very new to me and I don't want to give up my old ways. But you come a long way and you seem polite and harmless. I'll give you the permission to tell the people all about your God. And you can live in Canterbury and no one will bother you as long as you behave yourself. So Augustine and his companions settled down in the town of Canterbury, and no one will bother you as long as you behave yourself. So Augustine and his companions settled down in Canterbury. They built a church and preached to the Anglo-Saxons. Eventually, many Anglo-Saxons became Christians. They learned how to read and write. They built churches and monasteries where men could live and worship God. And Augustine helped himself to be the first Archbishop of Canterbury, the leader of all Christians who lived in England. Medieval monasteries. Augustine and the men who went with him to Britain were monks, men who had promised to spend the rest of their lives praying, working, and studying the Bible, rather than marrying and having children. Monks lived together in a special building called monasteries. They went to church 8 times a day to pray and worship God. During the day, they worked in the monastery garden. Helped with the cooking, cleaning, and laundry, and did other jobs about the chief monk gave them to do. There were monasteries all through the old lands of the Roman Empire in Italy, Spain, Africa. Now all the countries that once belonged to Rome. When the Anglo-Saxons learned about Christianity, they wanted some wanted to be monks too. They built monasteries in England and in Ireland, where they could live just like other monks. Brother Andrew is a monk in an Irish monastery. His job is to build furniture in the monastery workshop. The monks make their own chairs, tables, and beds. This morning, Brother Andrew is working on building a new table for the refectory, the large room where monks eat together. He is rubbing oil on the tabletop to finish it, but he keeps stopping to blow on his fingers. He's cold. The workshop is stone shed, and there's a fireplace in one wall, but the December wind is blowing around the windows and under the door, and it's still very dark outside because the sun hasn't risen yet. He is working by candlelight, and his eyes hurt. Brother Andrew hopes that the bell will ring soon to summon him to the refectory. He 2 o'clock this morning from the early morning service, and then went to his workshop to get started on the day's task. It must be nearly 5 o'clock now, he thinks. Almost breakfast time. Finally the bell rings. Brother Andrew puts on a heavy cloak and hood and walks towards the refectory. On his way, he passes a line of sick and hungry people already formed around the monastery gates. Brother James knows a lot about herbs and healing sicknesses. He's the only doctor within 3 days' journey, and villagers from several small villages come up to the monastery whenever they get sick. The monks cook food for the hungry too and serve it even before they eat themselves. The sun is beginning to come up when Brother Andrew steps into the refectory. He can smell the fresh wheat bread that's been baked for breakfast. The monks aren't allowed to eat butter on their bellies unless it's Christmas or another special day. And the rules of the monastery say no one can eat the meat of a four-legged animal, so sausage, bacon, and beef are never on the breakfast table, but he likes the thick, crusty brown bread. This morning, there are cooked beans and peas and few sweet withered apples, the last of the fall harvest, kept in cool dirt cellar until now. Monks aren't allowed to talk at meals. Instead, Brother John reads them the Bible when they eat in silence. The Brother Andrew whispers to the monk next to him, How did your pupils behave yesterday? Terribly, the monk whispered back. He teaches in the monastery school, where village students are sent to be educated. They don't want to learn how to read or write. Each time I turn my back, they whisper and giggle to each other. They don't pay any attention to me at all. They drew rude pictures on me on the slate when I had to go out for a few minutes. Brother John hears the whispering and glares over at them. Brother Andrew finishes his breakfast and waits until the abbot, the monk who runs the whole monastery, prays. He goes back to his workshop and finishes his table. It's a beautiful piece of furniture. He knows he shouldn't be proud of it, but he carves and do his work on the underside of the table in tiny, tiny letters. Maybe one day someone will see the letters and know that Brother Andrew made this table with his own hands. This is the end of this video. Today we read about the fall of Rome to the monks that are Christians in Ireland. I think the most important part of this is the fall of Rome, because it tells us about how Rome is divided and is becoming weaker and weaker until it falls to the barbarians. This is the end of this video. Bye!